Welcome to Atlanta, where the players play. How are you? I'm back. I'm still sick. I've been in bed most of the day. In today's video, I want to talk about writing jokes, which seems to stump people, versus just being funny. So we'll go over that. First, I want to address what I talked about in the last video about one-on-one mentorship. It's not something I initially thought about until one of you contacted me. And so a few people have contacted me. So I want to break it down for you. What it is a 1 hour session, $100, and you're not locked into like a package of four or anything. Like, this is just something I'm doing because I need money and people want me to do it with them. So you're not locked in. I don't have enough time to do this for a lot of comics or do it with a lot of comics. I shouldn't say for. So yeah, the way that it works is you send me stuff, either written material or a set, and I will punch it up or go through it with you on the phone or maybe a Zoom video, although I'm not terribly excited to do Zoom, and put you in the right direction specific to you and kind of the sense of where you want to go and what level you're at. I used to do this with so many comics back in the day. I feel like I can reveal it to you. I wrote for Bobby Lee once. He needed characters for Mad TV. This is way back in the day, and I wrote up a bunch of characters. We met outside of a Starbucks. Whitney Cummings. It's funny because Whitney says she's never had any writers, and that may be true, but I'd sit down for writing sessions with her, and it's just what comics did. And I gave her a bunch of material, and one of the bits, she improved. She made it better than what I initially gave her, and she did it on a special. Jeff Dunham. I've done this for a lot of comics, so I'm willing to do it. I'm a little bit reluctant because, as I said on here, this hasn't been some elaborate scam to get you to part with your money. I don't like charging comics for things. But this is different than, making free videos or whatever. And to the nice gentleman who wrote a comment where I responded with my email, who's 72 and things are tight for you money wise, so you relate to me. You're getting it for free. I'm not charging you. I'm just excited that you're doing this. If anybody has a problem with that, too bad. So yeah, I think, and it's not just an hour. The hour is you and I talking, but I have to do all the prep work to go through the stuff. And don't send me like 18 pages of material, because then it's down to $3 an hour. I can't function like that. And ultimately, I'm a comedian first. I'm doing this channel for a number of different reasons. One of the main ones is to help fellow comics, but I'm not a comedy professor or a PhD in jokematics or anything like that. I'm good at what I do. I'm especially good at punching up material. That's how I got my first ghostwriting gig with that writer that we did 30 scripts together. My email address for probably 15 years was punchup@sbcglobal.net and punchup@yahoo.com. This is way back in the early 2000s, because I was punching up that person's scripts, and then they liked it enough and trusted me enough to hire me to write scenes as well. And then by the end, I was writing close to half the movie, all under their direction. It was their idea, and I would help shape it and that stuff. So I can't do this for everybody. If you want to do it one time, that's fine. If you want to do it every week, that's fine. So that's that. And we'll figure out PayPal or Venmo, or you can just mail me a check, whatever. We'll figure it out. All right, that aside, let's talk about joke writing. Because there were some guys in the mean Discord, which I especially like Mookie. It's like, I watched your whole video about writing jokes and you didn't tell us how to write jokes. Well, I did, but I want to make it even easier for you. One of the problems when it comes to sitting down and writing a joke, and I've said this in numerous videos, is you start thinking like a comedian. Okay, I have to write a setup and a punchline. That's not easy to do because your brain is going in a million different directions. That's why I said in one of the earlier videos, you have to constrain yourself and put limits so that you're not all over the place with what you're going to talk about. And also when you're in that mindset, it becomes more technical. Like this has to do this, and then this, and then this. And so what I've said, and I realize there's probably like 112 videos now. It's hard to go back through all that stuff. And I try not to be too repetitive on this channel because some of you watch every single video. But in the easiest, simplest terms, writing a joke is experiencing something or coming up with a thought or an idea or observing something and making fun of it. You're roasting life. Think about it that way. It's a lot easier. Don't think about it as I have to sit down and try to come up with something that fits a formula, even if the formula is set up punchline, which is the most basic and most standard. And neither of those are negative words. They're neutral words. They're just descriptors. Just think of it as making fun of stuff. It's like when you're out with your buddies and you just start goofing on them. That's what it is. Except in this case, you're goofing on, I don't know, when they got rid of the sexy M&Ms. Do you remember that from like a year ago when they said that the M&Ms, those characters are too sexy? And so they, for feminism or something, they had to take the one out of Go-Go Boots. Like, I'm old school. I like M&Ms that you can still jerk off to. See, that's all it is. It's we now have M&Ms that are gender neutral and not being exploited. But the good news is it still gives little kids diabetes. That's all it is. You're just coming up with something that you think is funny and then conveying that to the audience. So the difference between writing jokes and being funny on stage, a lot of times it's in the moment. There'll be things that come up even when you're writing where you're just being funny. It's not a structured joke. One of the examples, if you go back and watch the open mic that I did, I have the note cards. I think it was the Carly Simon joke. And then after I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm getting upset about this or whatever. I turn and I have a note card in my hand and I say to somebody in the audience, do you want this? It got a laugh. It was funny because it was weird. It's like, in my mind, I knew what I was doing. It was a little interaction with the crowd. Like, what I was thinking is, you seem to really enjoy this one. And all the card said was Carly Simon on it. And they're like, no. And so if I wrote that down in a notebook, it wouldn't really make sense. That's not a traditional joke. Here's another example. If I went on stage, and I might do this, so I'm giving you an example that I might actually do, so don't take it for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Richard Francis Williams. And I just go on stage and I start going, may the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. And I get the audience clapping with me. And I'm like really getting into it. It's so bizarre to them that, you know, they're going to be clapping and it gets them moving. They're going to be laughing. And then the longer I do it, with those kind of weird avant-garde surrealist pieces, it's not a bit, it's like a piece, like a set piece, like performance art. It goes through this thing where it's kind of funny in the beginning, then it's like real weird, and then if you do it long enough, it becomes even funnier. And you'll find that with Andy Kaufman when he was doing the Mighty Mouse piece on Saturday Night Live. The reason to me why that was funny is he was only lip syncing the "Here I Come to Save the Day." He could have lip synced the whole thing, but he was very like worried about getting his, getting everything set up, waiting for his part, and then he would perform. And then he went back to being me, kind of like the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes frog, the one that could sing and dance, but would shut down when told to perform in front of people to see that it was a magical frog. So think of those types of things that you can play around with and kind of add. This is a follow-up to yesterday's video about be watchable, be interesting. By adding those little things, it's going to set you apart. Because, again, nobody can steal that. They could try to, but if you know what the intention is, it's not easy to pull off unless you completely commit to it. That's the thing. You have to commit to these types of things. Not the note card. That was a very short little moment that I shared with the audience. And it wasn't something I pre-planned. It just kind of came into my mind. I did it. And it wasn't like, again, when I talk about this stuff, I want you to realize I'm aware. It's not earth-shattering. It's not like, oh, and then he did that. What a genius. I'm just using that as an example. That's why I need to get to more open mics so I can do these things and show you and then refer back to them. I just don't want you to think I'm thinking that it's breaking this new ground or that it's earth-shattering. It's not. It's just little things to add some spice and flavor to your overall performance. You're still going to need jokes. You can go up there and do a whole performance art set and have it be stand-up and have it be funny, but it's hard to write something like that. I think you need a different type of training for those, to have your entire set be that stuff. Excuse me. Oh, man. I don't like being sick. That stereotype about men getting a cold or something. This isn't even a cold. I just have a scratchy throat and my chest feels rough, which is weird because I stopped smoking. So I know that it's not from that. And then here's the other joke writing exercise that will give you both of those moments, but more importantly, jokes. This may be the easiest way to come up with a joke so that you're not sitting at a desk or a coffee shop bashing your head against the wall trying to come up with a setup and a punchline. You ready? You always find the perfect time to make a little noise. Do you know that, Willie? That was very good. Get your chewies. They're right here. Teddy's got to go back to it. I have to cough again, so this is a good little break. Excuse me. So, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into your vehicle and record yourself. Just audio. You don't need to see yourself doing this. Either do it while you're driving or go to a parking lot where nobody's going to see you so you're not self-conscious. And just start bitching and moaning about every little thing and every big thing in your life. whatever's pissing you off at the moment, things that don't make sense to you. It's like this, but it should be like this. I don't like the way this is because this is what's supposed to be happening. Or this person said this and I said this, and then back and forth. Do that for a set amount of time. Give yourself a time, like a time limit. Where, all right, I'm going to do it for a half an hour or 20 minutes or an hour, whatever that is. But stick to it. Do it every day for like 7 days in a row. Try it out. Because the first day it's going to feel weird. Just like your first open mic is going to feel weird or did feel weird. You have to give these things a chance because the second time you do it, it's not going to feel as weird. And by the 7th time, it's going to be old hat. It's like making these videos. I didn't want to look into the camera. I was going to wear sunglasses for these. Now I could just talk contemporaneously. Am I using that word correctly? I don't know. But I can speak off the top of my head about a subject that I have some knowledge on. And I'm looking straight down the barrel of the camera because it becomes easy. You start getting used to it. So go in your car, do that. Why is healthy food more expensive than the shit that they're selling us? Why is it bananas? Yeah, they seem cheap, but you need this to go with whatever it is that you're upset about. Healthy food, for some reason, seems to cost more. And when they had to start labeling things, well, I can't even get into that. Another comic does a bit about that, so I'm not going to use that as an example. But what pisses you off? Willie interrupting me at times and being so adorable and making me feel like I'm a bad dog parent because I'm not playing with him. But this is the only time he ever wants to fucking play with me. There'll be other times where I'm trying to chase him around and he gets freaked out. But now he's chasing Bingo. He's trying to smell her ass. And I feel like that's his mom or his aunt, and it's inappropriate. And if I really get worked up and carried away and then Bingo wants to go out, I let her out. She'll run around for an hour. Then I tell her, push it for the door. Push it. And she'll push it. Then she'll come in, peek her head in, and I go to let her back in. She'll look at me and she'll run back out. Like she's fucking pulling one over on me. And it's freezing outside. So it's letting all the cold air in. They don't have jobs. They're not paying any bills. They're just eating treats all day. I'm pacifying their aggression with cookies, and Willie's peeing everywhere. I bought him diapers the other day because for some reason I didn't want to get him neutered, and that's led to this level of arrogance that he has where he could just mark his territory. He should be potty trained. He's 2.5, but he's still struggling with it. And so I can't have a girl over with that type of nonsense happening. Do you see what I'm doing? Do that. None of that may have been funny, but here's the second secret trick. Take a day or so, play it back at 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed. It's what I used to do when I started off going to the open mics in Syracuse, New York, which is about 2 to 2.5 hours away. I would go up, I would bomb, and then I would drive back and I would record myself yelling at myself for that 2 to 2.5 hours on a Sunday night. And then I would play it back at almost double speed, and it sounded like a little chipmunk bitching at himself. And I was so funny because I wasn't trying to be funny. That's where the problem is. When you try to sit down and write a joke, you're trying to be funny instead of being funny. It's like any state of emotion. When you try to be confident, it's nowhere close to just being confident. It's hard to fake certain things. And so when you are natural and caught up in the emotion is what sells comedy. The logic is in there in the structure of the joke, but it's the emotion. That's the performance. And when you're ranting and raving like I just was about my dogs, I'm not thinking set up punchline, set up punchline, set up punchline. I'm just describing what's going on. I'm being very literal. And then sometimes I'll go off into loops of absurdism. I used to say this about my other dogs. I had 3 dogs, Molly, Hogan, and Richie. And Richie I didn't name after myself. He was abused. Molly and Richie were both Australian Shepherds, and Hogan was a Golden Retriever, Yellow Lab mix. Hogan was the sweetest. I got him when I moved here to Schenectady from my cousin brother, as I call him, because he's like my younger brother. We grew up together. I moved in with his parents, my mother's cousins, halfway through high school. And I took his dog in because Hogan and Richie loved each other. And because Molly was my favorite, I did have a favorite, but Richie was an Australian Shepherd that they found on the side of the road when he was young. He was like maybe 9 months, I don't know. And he was so scared that they weren't going to let me adopt him at first. They tried to talk me out of it. They said, he's so skittish. He freezes up when people hold him. And I said, Molly, that made me want him more. And I said, Molly will teach him how to be a dog. I had to hand feed him for 2 months because he was just so afraid. So I couldn't, it would break my heart to have changed his name. I couldn't change it to something else. And people already thought I was crazy because I was a comedian and an alcoholic and, doing drugs and chasing tail and all that stuff. So I'm going to keep his name Richie, and it makes for a funny story. And I realized one day when I'm sitting here in the house that if things ever get so bad that I want to, do something to myself, I'll just move to Paris. That's an agreement that I made with myself. I'll start over. I'll move to Paris. And then if that doesn't work, then I'll do it. But I couldn't just leave my dogs, so I was sitting around my house waiting for my dogs to die so that I could move to Paris so that I didn't do that. You see, like, I'm waiting around for my dogs to die so I can move to Paris. If you start a joke with that, people are going to be like, what? What are you talking? Oh, that's crazy, man. I want to hear more about this. Or that's revolting. Please get me out of this with a punchline. When you're writing jokes, you have to not think of it as writing jokes. You have to trick yourself. I was talking with somebody today, one of the people that wants to do the one-on-one coaching, and in his email before we spoke, he brought something up that I didn't know that a lot of people knew about this. There was a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. That's where I got the idea of writing stream of consciousness, where in an earlier video I talk about how I put the word heaven at the top, and then I just wrote for 20 minutes nonstop about heaven, everything that came into my head. I didn't stop typing. If I couldn't think of anything, I just type, I can't think of anything. I'm not thinking of anything. I'm not thinking, then something else would come up. It's because I was doing these morning pages. I highly recommend the book. The morning pages, you write 3 pages stream of consciousness every morning. It's basically vomiting out everything that's in your head. And you do that so you can clear room to take out all the noise and distractions from your head. Every little thing you're worried about. Oh, my boss hates me. Oh, I need to get a coffee on my way to work today. All that stuff, whatever's going on in your mind, you get it all out, and then it frees you up to write. And as I was telling him in our conversation, there was a girl who wanted to do stand-up that I was friends with. And I said, do these morning pages. Just write stream of consciousness. And then I had her go up there on stage, and I said, I want you to read your morning pages, but act like you're having a mental breakdown, because it's not going to make sense. It's going to seem bizarre. And if you can, start crying and smudge your eyeliner and mascara. And she did so well. People were coming up to her afterwards. It was her first time on stage because it was raw emotion and it was surreal and absurd, and people didn't know what to make of it. And there were funny, really funny things in there. And she was committed to it. She was selling it. So that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. If you just sit down to write a joke, I get why it's hard. I have the same frustrations. I have the same struggles with it. Then I remember, okay, this is how I actually do it. I'll see something on Twitter and I'll react to it. I'll write a comment where I'm making a joke. Roast people. Roast ideas. Bust balls. Be silly. Be wild. Free yourself from these formulaic structures. There's a whole video on that. I mean, that's one of the things that's so difficult when people go through, again, I'm for comedy classes in general. I think there's some really good things you can get out of them. You meet a lot of people who want to do the same thing as you. You can form a little group. You can all help each other. I'm very big on that. You get a showcase at the end of it where you can perform and try out your material in a setting that's more conducive to laughter than an open mic, because it's not just comics. Everybody's bringing their friends and family. 1 minute, Willie, I'm almost done. I'm trying to keep this one short. That's why I'm going very fast paced tonight. Go get your Chewies. The only downside of some of these comedy classes is, and it depends on who you take them from, but you have to know, hey, is this person relevant now? Is their style relevant now? Because a lot of times they're teaching things that were pertinent to comedy back in the 80s. And it's been 40 years since then. A lot of things changed in comedy. People have seen a lot of comedy, either live or on TV or online. It's all around us now. We're inundated with material. And it's a constant churn through TikTok videos and memes and all of that. So sometimes when people come to me that I've worked with, it's almost like the first session I have to deprogram them from what they were taught. And it's, you get some of these ideas in your head, especially if they're early on, it's hard to get that out of your head. So you don't need some special jargon to write a joke. You don't need it's not the Pythagorean theorem. You're just making fun of shit. That's all it is. You're just making jokes. You're not even jokes. You're literally just trying to make somebody laugh. You can make somebody laugh in many different ways. The height to me is when, I don't know what the height to me is. What I personally like is taking difficult subjects and getting people to laugh when they wouldn't normally laugh if they actually thought about it. But just be funny. And I know when people hear that, they're like, well, what does that mean? Well, I just explained it all to you. This is the only thing that I don't like about this video is that you'll be watching this over the weekend on a Sunday it airs. And this weekend videos don't get as many views. But this is one of the best videos I've made because it cuts right to the chase. All right, that's it. I'm going to leave my email for anybody who wants to do the one-on-one mentorship or coaching. I don't like using any of those words. If you want me to talk with you directly and help you punch up your jokes and give you some personalized direction for your material, I'll see you tomorrow.